Let's give Alina a round of applause, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Alina, and today I'll be giving a presentation about a topic that I have a personal connection with and feel very strongly about. Through the use of various holistic and rhetoric devices, I hope to inspire you all to start taking control of your lives and to stop believing that the universe decides your fate. I'll now begin my topic. Right at the top. The 12 signs of the zodiac. According to horoscopic astrology that dates back as early as the 2nd century BC, one can tell a person's character, psychological traits, and even to some extent destiny from his or her rate of birth, in accordance to the alignment of the stars from his or her zodiac sign. I'm certain that almost everyone in this room knows what their sign is. I'm certain that many of you might even know specific traits that have been associated with a particular sign. Well, I'm a Cancer. Cancers have been described as being loyal, emotional, dependable, caring, imaginative, and the list goes on. These adjectives sound pretty cool, right? Well, George W. Bush, Lindsay Lohan, and O.J. Simpson are also Cancers. Now, if it's true that everyone who shares the same zodiac sign also shares similar personalities, that would mean that I share the same personality with a controversial ex-president, a child star turned drug addict, and a football star turned convict. These characteristics that are supposed to be unique to a particular sign aren't really all that special or unique. The adjectives I have listed could easily fit any of you in this room, even if you aren't a Cancer. And there may also be Cancers in this room who don't fit these adjectives. The fact is that astrology, there has been no legitimate evidence proving astrology's legitimacy. Astrology has been widely regarded in the scientific community as a pseudoscience, is widely rejected by the scientific community. A pseudoscience is a claim or belief that appears to be scientific, but really has no scientific evidence and lacks scientific status. Yet, 1/4 of Americans, Canadians, and Britons believe in astrology. To be completely honest, I too was a believer of astrology. I began my fascination with astrology at a very young age, at the age of 7, when I came across the website zodiacgirls.com. On this website, I spent hours reading about my sign and other signs, and playing games like Ask the Oracle or What's Your Element, and reading horoscopes, weekly, daily, and yearly horoscopes. And this obsession of astrology never left me. As I grew older, I still would look through magazines to find the horoscope section. I would try and figure out what the signs of the guys that I liked were to figure out if we were compatible. And I even had horoscope applications downloaded on my phone. It wasn't until a couple months ago that I had a sudden revelation about the truth of astrology and why I was so obsessed. I came across an article about a famous experiment conducted by psychologist Bertram R. Forer in 1948 that tests the accuracy of astrology and why people are so obsessed with it. And this experiment has been replicated several times since it first came out. These photos are from a recent tape on the experiment by Penn and Teller. In the original experiment, Forer gave his class personality tests and told them that they would then be given a unique personality analysis that would tell them what their personality is. And they were supposed to rate these personality analysis from a scale of 0 to 5. 0 being very poor, 5 being very accurate. The average rating that was given by the students was 4.26. Forer then revealed to students that these personality tests were really actually horoscopes, and they were all given the same horoscope. This experiment tells us two things. One, horoscopes tend to be vague and general and applicable to many people. And two, people tend to make personal connections with statements that generally can be applied to many people. This has now become known as the Forer effect. People relate to astrology and horoscopes because they are looking for a connection. Now, I sat and thought about this for quite some time. I thought about why I was looking for these connections, and why I was so obsessed with astrology and fortune telling, messages from the universe. And I realized that the reason I was so desperate to search for these signs is because I'm so uncertain about my life. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing day in and day out, and if I'm making the right decisions. I want someone else or something else to tell me what to do, to give me advice, to guide me. I wanted reassurance that everything would be okay and that I have nothing to worry about, and that whatever happens is supposed to happen for a reason. The problem with thinking this way, thinking that someone else or some other force will plan your life out for you, is that it stops you from reaching your full potential. It limits you. It prevents you from being independent. Life is what you make it. At the end of the day, you are making the final decisions. You get to decide what you want to believe and what you feel and what to feel. Don't read about how Jupiter entering Capricorn means that it's a good time to make investments, or how the moon shifting into your sign means that you're going to be feeling more down than usual. Don't let some stranger on the internet tell you what to do or how to feel. Stars are just giant flaming orbs of gas floating in a vacuum. They don't dictate your life. They don't determine how your life will turn out. You do. Thank you. In my presentation, the main rhetoric, I'll now give my rationale. In the presentation, the main rhetoric and stylistic devices I used were inclusive language, personal anecdotes, allusion, statistics, appeal to authority, and repetition to establish my pathos, logos, and ethos. At the start of my presentation, after introducing my topic, I began with inclusive language to draw the reader in. I'm certain that almost everyone in this room knows what their sign is. I then say I'm certain that many of you might even know what specific traits have been associated with your sign. This prompts the reader to start thinking about these adjectives. And then I used personal anecdote by telling the audience that I'm a Cancer to establish a personal connection with the audience. And I list adjectives to tell people and let them know more about me. And then allude to several famous celebrities and public figures like George W. Bush, Lindsay Lohan, and O.J. Simpson, so that the audience would recognize these people and be more interested in what I have to say. It also creates a sharp contrast between the adjectives that I mentioned before and further emphasizes my point that astrology is not accurate and that you can't be taken seriously. And then use hard facts and statistics, like I explicitly tell you that there has been no evidence proving astrology's legitimacy, and that is regarded as a pseudoscience. But then I tell you guys that 1/4 of people believe it. This also shows a contrast that if there's been no proof for astrology, why do so many people believe it? I then establish my credibility and ethos about speak of this topic because I tell you guys that I also used to believe in astrology. But I don't anymore, which helps me with my argument. I tell you guys what made me change and what made me stop believing in astrology when I started getting into the main message I want to tell the audience. The experiment I referred to appeals to authority, and I mentioned the psychologist's name, Bertrand Forer, to establish ethos and logos. I refer to a notable scientific figure and a notable scientific experiment. I continue to link back to the experiment by reflecting on my thought process after reading the article. I thought about this for some time. This is where I got to the core of my topic. To tell you that, to explain why I was so obsessed with astrology, why people are so obsessed with astrology. And I get to my thesis in the end when I tell people what the problem is. I explicitly tell them what the problem about believing in astrology is and how to stop this. To tell people and that's why I use a repetition of you, that you decide your life, you decide your fate, that you don't have to listen to someone else to tell you what to do, how to interpret your life. conclusion, I hope that you will take away from my presentation, and that I hope that my presentation will motivate you just a little bit to be more confident, to be more independent, and less reliant on external factors to take charge of your life. Thank you.
Andres, can you bring me back in? Oh, Alina, stay.